The fire stick. It was still dark when Squanto woke. He sat up. His bed was near the fireplace. The fireplace was a circle of stones on the floor. In the winter, his mother cooked on the stones. The smoke went out through a hole in the roof. Squanto looked up through the smoke hole. The sky was growing light. It would soon be morning. His father and mother were sleeping. He got up without waking them. For his breakfast, he took a handful of cornmeal from the corn basket. He went outside. The village was very still. The fires had gone out. Men were sleeping on the ground. Squanto went down the path toward the shore. He walked beside the little river that ran near the village. He ate the cornmeal as he went. He was thinking about the white men. He wanted to know where they were and what they were doing. When he came to the shore, he saw the great ship in the bay. And he saw something else, a small boat on the sand near the water. Squanto listened. He heard voices. Quickly, he lay down on the ground. He was not afraid, but he remembered what his mother had said. The white men have strange magic. He crawled through the tall grass. He crawled up a sandhill and looked over the top. There, in the early morning light, he saw the white men. There were 9 men sitting around a fire. They all looked very much alike to Squanto. They were covered with clothing so that he could see only their hands and their hairy faces. Even their arms and legs were covered, and they wore shoes that came to their knees. Squanto thought it was strange that they wore so many clothes on such a warm summer morning. They were eating clams and throwing the shells on the sand. They were talking. Squanto could not understand what they said. One of the men looked up and said something. Another one picked up a large black stick. He pointed it into the air. There was a noise louder than thunder. Smoke and fire came out of the end of the stick. Squanto gave a cry. He jumped out of the grass and fell on his face. He lay there with his hands over his ears. He heard the white men talking. Someone pulled him to his feet. He was not hurt. He looked at the fire stick in the man's hands. Smoke still came from it, but no fire. Some of the men began to laugh. Squanto looked at them without smiling. He did not like to be laughed at. The man put the fire stick under his arm. He walked into the grass and picked up a duck. Now Squanto saw that the white man had shot the duck with the fire stick, just as an Indian would have shot it with a bow and arrow. "It made a loud noise," said Squanto. "It hurt my ears, but I am not afraid." The men looked at each other. They shook their heads. He knew they could not understand him. One of the men came up to him. He was the youngest of the white men. He said a word that Squanto knew. He smiled and said it again. "Friend." "How do you know my language?" asked Squanto. The man pointed to the north. "Massachusetts," he said. "You learned from the Massachusetts tribe?" asked Squanto. The man nodded. Squanto pointed to himself. "I am a Patuxet. I am Squanto." The man pointed to himself. "Charles Robbins," he said. It was the strangest name Squanto had ever heard. "Are you the chief?" he asked. Charles Robbins shook his head. He pointed to the man with the fire stick. "Is he the chief?" asked Squanto. Charles Robbins nodded. The man with the fire stick pointed to himself and said, "Captain George Weymouth." Squanto tried to say it. It was a stranger name than Charles Robbins. He said, "The chief of the Patuxets knows you are here. He waits for you in the village. Come, I will take you there." He made a sign for the others to follow him. The white men talked together. Some of them nodded, some of them shook their heads. At last, Captain George Weymouth, Charles Robbins, and 4 other men started after Squanto. Squanto walked very straight. He was happy and excited. He had met the white chief and his men, and they were his friends. Proudly, he led them up the path to the village.